Welcome to this Best Books book review. And look, today we're looking at a fabulous book by Donald Miller. Donald Miller, who's written Hero on a Mission. Now, some of you, I bet, are thinking to yourself, Donald Miller. I know that name. Yes, you probably do know that name. Donald wrote the wonderful Building a Story Brand book. Now, this was the Wall Street Journal's #1 bestseller at one time. Very popular book, and it's a book for business owners about how to clarify your message. A very easy read. Donald has written another very easy, impactful read. He has a talent for getting to the point, which I love, and be really clear. So I can't recommend this book highly enough. And look, I know there's one or two of you perhaps that don't know me, so let me just say, my name's Eric Winters. I am I'm an author. Yes, I'm an author of Swipe Right on Your Best Self. Simple Steps to a Bolder Life with Fewer Regrets. I'm also a coaching skills trainer. I've trained over 1,000 leaders on how to have better coaching conversations with their direct reports, with their teams, with stakeholders. Coaching conversations are solution-focused, collaborative conversations. And it's a wonderful thing to see how quickly, over a course of just a week or two, people begin to get better and better at having these conversations. I've trained over 1,000 leaders in packs. I'm not going to say groups, in packs of between 6 and maybe 16. So that's quite a lot of workshops. But as I say, fabulous to see how quickly people get better. It's very rewarding. I also train professional coaches. I do that on Monday evenings. I'll be doing that a little bit later. And I also coach leaders. I've been doing coaching senior leaders in organizations for the last 12 years. But let's get on and dive into Donald Miller's wonderful book, Hero on a Mission. Here's his opening idea. It's that your life is a story. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, and it has an end. And it also has chapters, or even episodes, you might say. Now, in your life, you've either watched a lot of stories, films, series, streaming shows, or perhaps you've read a lot of stories in books. I hope you're a reader. You'll know that there are some stories that you can't put the book down. The pace is quite high. It's exciting. You want to know what happens next. They're interesting stories. Also, some shows you may have watched are plodding. They're a bit dull. They don't really grab you. They're the ones you turn off or you put the book down. Now, here's the thing. Here's the gauntlet that Donald throws down for us. According to Donald, you are the author of your own life story. You have sole responsibility for how it unfolds. Now, of course, you're not responsible for the time in history that you've been born. You're not responsible for your parents. You're not responsible for the economic climate. There's a lot in our world that we are not responsible for. But we all have responsibility, according to Donald, for how we respond to the opportunities and the challenges that our lives present us with. Now, Donald is hugely influenced, he makes this very clear in his book, very influenced by another book we've talked about before, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. You remember, Viktor Frankl was in multiple concentration camps during the Second World War, watching people die on a daily basis, a horrific set of circumstances. And he's a psychologist, and he wrote a book afterwards, after the war. And he was thinking about it during the internment in those concentration camps. And here's what Viktor Frankl has to say. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Now, I know that the coaches amongst us have heard this before, but it's still a statement we need to turn back to, and a well we need to drink from time to time. We can choose our response to any given set of circumstances. If he can choose his response to being in a concentration camp, watching his friends get gassed on a daily basis, that must be felt so hopeless at the time. If he can do it, we ought to be able to do this too in our own lives. Donald says we all have far, far more choice and autonomy and power to choose than we realize. We just need to surface it. So big call there from Donald, a challenge. We are the authors of our life's stories. How are we going to respond to life's challenges? Now, according to Donald, there are 4 roles in any story, in absolutely any story, 4 roles. And we will move between these roles at different times. Now, the 4 roles are perhaps most obvious. They kind of stand out in one story in particular, but they show up in all stories that have ever been written. And the one story I'm thinking of is this one. Star Wars. Star Wars. Now, there have been so many Star Wars films, many of them dreadful, I think, but some of them are wonderful. And I would have loved to have been in one of the wonderful ones. So here I am, finally, in Star Wars. Now, what Donald says is that 4 roles in any story. One of them is heroes. Now, the hero of the story, they're the ones we're rooting for. They're the ones we want to succeed. They've got some challenge, some difficulty. It's often a challenge to help other people. And they are trying to do something that's difficult but really important. Now, the villains of the story, they're kind of more obvious in Star Wars, aren't they? They kind of stand out. The bad guys they often look really, really bad, or they breathe like bad people. You can tell from their breathing. And villains, according to Donald, are the people who want to diminish others. They want to put them down. They want to hold them back. Then we have the guides. Now, in Star Wars, they're kind of quite obvious. The guides are the people that want to help the heroes. They are assisting them. They're not the main characters, but they're the supporting, really important supporting actors. And the guides perhaps are the Jedis, the Yodas of Star Wars. And then, unfortunately, there are the victims, the people who are in helpless situations, the people who have been blown up by Death Stars, oppressed by the evil empire, pretty much hopeless situations they find themselves in. Now, Donald says, look, we kind of move between these roles. At times, we set ourselves important challenges. We move towards them. They're difficult, frightening challenges. Under those times, we're acting heroically, moving towards what matters most, but is frightening. At other times, he says, we all actually play the role of villains. When I read this, I thought, really? This doesn't really ring true. Villains? Me? But yes, we're villainous anytime we try to put down ourselves. When you say to yourself, oh, I could never do that. No, that's too much. Or when we criticize ourselves, idiot, how could I have done that? What was I thinking? When we make ourselves small, when we put ourselves down, when we live small, we're acting in a villainous manner. At times, we're guides, we're helping others, we're sharing. And this is a wonderful thing to do. But at times, we also adopt the victim role. Now, what Donald means here is that we wait, perhaps, to be rescued by somebody else. We're passive. Oh, we might be complaining about our circumstance. Oh, poor me. This shouldn't have happened to me. And hopefully we can all reflect on this, that at times we've all, maybe briefly, maybe for longer, but we've all adopted this role, this sense of, oh, this isn't fair. Life's so unfair. Yes. And we've waited. Perhaps we've waited for help to come, someone to rescue us, or we've waited to feel better. I'll certainly take action just as soon as I'm in the right mood. I've I've got to be in the right mood to take action. We're adopting a victim role when we do that. So Donald is inviting us to recognize, first off, recognize throughout our days which roles are we in, and then to choose to act more like a hero. Now, something really important about a hero as framed by Donald. Heroes are not capable, brave, fearless, and go it alone types that just do everything by themselves. Far from it. He says real heroes are flawed. They are incompetent in the area in which they are being challenged. They're incompetent initially. And they need help. They need help from a guide. Real heroes cannot do it alone. They need support. So this is good news. It's good news because we all qualify for that category of hero. Aren't we all, flawed in some respects, incompetent in many areas? Not all areas, but in some areas of life in which we're being challenged. Don't we all do better when we're willing to ask for help? I think so. So, heroes, people like you and me. Now, heroes have a number of characteristics. Here is one of the characteristics. They have specific ambitions, very specific ambitions. Now, some of the qualities of the ambitions that heroes have, yes, they're specific, but they're also difficult. These aren't easy challenges they set themselves, easy tasks, easy goals, easy targets. No, they're quite difficult for them. They may not be difficult for other people, but they are difficult for them. So they have difficult goals. In addition, their challenges are personally meaningful. And again, they might not be meaningful to somebody else. That might not really light anybody else up. But the thought of achieving this ambition is personally meaningful to the hero. Another quality of these ambitions, they are daunting. They may be frightening when we think about, God, am I up to that? Could I make that happen? And they may be embarrassing. Yeah, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the goals that heroes set are embarrassing. And they'll have the thought, who am I? Who do I think I am to reach for that? How dare I? No one in my family or community has done that kind of thing. What will others say if they hear about this? That I would dare to try to make something like that real. What would they say? So there's some of the qualities. Now I'd like to ask you, what specific ambitions do you have right now, which are perhaps, a little bit daunting, a little bit frightening. They're quite big. They're important to you. Might not be important to somebody else, but they matter to you. This could be in the area of health. Have you set yourself a bold goal in the area of health? Maybe it's in your professional life. It could be in your personal life. Doesn't matter what it is. I'd love to see in the chat, what are some of the personal specific ambitions? You don't have to give me too many details about the specificity. You can leave it at broad brush for now. But I'd love to hear what kind of things have people set. Now, while you're doing that, while you're typing, and to let me know, may I mention that I've got a daunting goal at the moment. I'm going to write my second book this year. Yeah, I've told you now, so I've got to do it. I'm writing my second book, and it's a different kind of book to the first one. And I'm also having that self-talk. That self-talk says, I'm sure people will have something to say about this. Perhaps I'm going to be criticized for expressing my thoughts in that particular way. Maybe there'll be some pushback. Who am I? Who am I to reach and try to create this kind of a book? It's ambitious for me. What kinds of things are you aspiring to create in your own words, in your own worlds? It could be a community project. Maybe you've been injured and you're just trying to get walking again. You're just trying to get up and get moving again. everyone will have different kinds of ambitions. Whatever your ambition is, it will be challenging. Heroes face their challenges. Heroes are willing to turn towards their challenges. The challenge such as taking charge of your own accounting. Yes, Karen, I feel for you. I feel for you. Taking charge of your own accounting. It daunts me too. I find that daunting. Quite scary. I hate admin. Absolutely dreadful doing it. And we see here that, yeah, Eileen, you would like to do an axle and get your fitness back to a very fast skating program. I'm not sure what an axle is, but I'm going to guess, Eileen, it's a skating maneuver. Is it some sort of dramatic skating maneuver? I know this is your field of expertise and you've competed internationally. So, yeah, lovely to set yourself a target like that, something that's challenging. And look, we've got another one from Victor. What's Victor saying? Daring Victor to focus on being a guide and saying goodbye to your heroic ambitions in your retirement. Lovely. Now I see I've very unhelpfully placed the comments box behind the graphic on the right. I'll get it right next time. Eileen, you're working towards a difficult jump. Thank you. Now, what is next? So yes, heroes, they turn towards their challenges. Heroes are realists. They accept the facts of their circumstances, accept them. It could be their financial circumstances. They turn towards them. They might not like it, but they won't like it perhaps, and then they will do something about it. Perhaps they're challenged in their personal relationships. And they accept the facts of their circumstances. It could be in their business. Something's not working. They've been trying to make it work for the longest time and they haven't followed through. And look, we all have these different challenges, but as I say, the heroes are realists. They accept the reality of the situation. They won't like it, but they will turn towards their challenges. Now, what Donald says, this is quite inspirational, he says, heroes take action. This is their defining feature. They take action in the face of challenges and they are transformed by the experience. So it's the act of turning towards challenges that transforms people. So no one pretty much actually is ready for a challenge immediately. That's why it's challenging. If they were already ready, it wouldn't be a challenge. It'd be a walk in the park. Yeah, here we go again. But heroes turn towards their challenges before they're ready. Before they're ready. And it's the act of engaging with it, learning, trying, failing, trying again, learning, that transforms and changes the hero, develops them. They are transformational. And Phil, thank you for sharing that. You've got some PTSD from past workplace issues, and they are triggered occasionally. That's a big challenge, a big challenge to work with. Thank you for sharing that. So, what is next? Challenges. An important part of the hero's journey is that heroes are willing to make sacrifices. They're willing to make sacrifices, and they know what sacrifices they're willing to make. So perhaps they'll say, okay, if I'm going to make this big, bold goal, and it's big and bold for them, remember, I'm going to make this thing happen. It matters to me. I am going to forego the following things. And it might be foregoing comfort. Perhaps it's going to be effortful. Maybe it's going to be embarrassing. Maybe it's going to be physically challenging. Maybe they're going to give up time that they would have spent doing something more enjoyable, watching Netflix, eating food, drinking perhaps, but having fun. They're willing to forego that in the service. So I'd like to ask you, in the service of achieving their goals, So I'd like to ask you, you've mentioned some of the challenges or some of the bold ambitions you've got to skate more effectively, to get on top of PTSD, to prepare yourself for retirement. What sacrifices are you willing to make in order to achieve what's important? What will you forego? What will you give up? It's people who are very specific about what they're willing to give up, what they're willing to surrender, who are more likely to actually achieve what matters most. What am I going to give up in writing my book? Well, I am going to have to, sadly, dedicate big chunks of time, and it's not going to be possible for me to do the fun things. There are various fun things I do in my work. Actually, this is one of them. I'll still be doing this. But there are handling, there's small email tasks. I get a quick kick of pleasure from handling those, responding to people on LinkedIn. I'm going to have to surrender and give up some of the more fun things I do and just dedicate big blocks of time, starting early each day, if I'm ever going to write this book. What sacrifices would you be willing to make in the service of achieving your own goals? Now, this is something I ask people in my coaching, when I'm coaching senior leaders and they set themselves up a big career goal perhaps, or they want to delegate more effectively. I ask them explicitly, what are you willing to sacrifice? And it's not actually something you can answer meaningfully in a few seconds. It is something to chew over. I'd invite you all to actually to chew over that as you think about what's really important to you, and then ask yourself the question, actually, how much? That's the question, not really what, but how much are you willing to sacrifice in order to make that happen? And I see we've got Eileen here. Eileen is saying, wow, you're willing to forego sleeping. That's a big ask. Sleep. It's such a lovely thing to do, Eileen, isn't it? I think. But yes, you're going to get up. You're going to get up out of your bed, perhaps while it's dark. I was going to say cold, but it's not that cold at this time of the year. But it will be dark and it will be early. And you're going to get into skate and go to the gym in order to perfect or develop that axle move. Wonderful. Okay, what next? Sacrifices. Now, this book is called, remember what it's called? Hero on a Mission. They are on a mission, and Donald provides a strategy for developing your own mission. You don't have to just dream it up out of nowhere. He gives a plan. Do this step, that step, and the other step. He suggests beginning to with the end in mind. Now, I hope people out there have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I put off reading it for so long. Maybe we should do a book review of it here. But it's a great book. It's full of really big ideas. Stephen Covey's second habit of highly effective people is to begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So Donald suggests, actually, think about the end of your life. The end of your life. There's going to be an end. There's no option there. We don't get to negotiate or decide whether or not there's going to be an end. There's going to be an end of life on this earth for certain. What would you like people to be saying about you when you're gone? Now, we're talking about a eulogy. Now, people don't need to say this, but what would you, if they were to say something, what would you like them to say about the kind of person you were, the kind of qualities you demonstrated? What was your character like? How did you treat people in your relationships? What would you like them to say about how you did your work, what you achieved in your professional life? Anything at all. What we're doing here is crafting an identity for our best possible self. This isn't about death. It's about how we want to show up as our best selves in life. Now, this isn't a small exercise, but it's worth spending a little bit of time drafting a eulogy. And Donald says, just do a couple of paragraphs. Don't worry about punctuation or anything. Knock out a couple of paragraphs. It will always be open to revision. It's never going to be used either. Right? It's just for you to get a clearer sense of how you'd like to show up when you're at your best. And then Donald has more to the strategy. He says, one, start with the end in mind and then work your way back. What do you want to make happen in 15 years? What do you want to be true in 10 years, in 5 years, and in 1 year? What do you want to make happen over the next year? It's your heroic mission to work on the 1 year. Don't worry about the whole. We can't live our whole lives in a single day, but we can move towards the end of this year. We can show up as the kind of people we'd really like to be. That is your heroic mission. Another important point, we've only got a few moments left. Donald says, a lot of people make the mistake, and I think I'm guilty of this to some degree, is we make the mistake of studying books about meaning. So some people will study religious texts, very meaningful religious texts, but it's not a substitute for living meaningfully. I spend a lot of time reading philosophical texts, psychological texts about meaning, but that's not living meaningfully. That's just reading about, and it can feel like a bit of a substitute, but it's no substitute. So what we need to do, Donald says, is actually take action. Heroes take action. Meaning is only experienced in motion, only experienced in motion by doing things, So I'm going to ask you now, this is important, what are you going to do in the next 24 hours that will move you towards your ambition? Not just thinking about it, what specifically are you willing to do? Eileen, are you going to set your alarm for, I think it's probably already set, isn't it, for tomorrow morning, some ungodly hour? And the rest of you, what will you do specifically to bring meaning to life? We only experience meaning in motion. There's another idea from Viktor Frankl, a really important idea about meaning in life. We've all done this. We're all doing it to some degree, even now. People will use pleasure as a substitute, as something like a band-aid, really, for living a meaningful life. So it's not just people out there, it's people like us at times. Donald invites us, encourages us to notice when we're using pleasure as a substitute for really living meaningfully. So we are just about at the end of this little webinar on this Hero on a Mission. Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. Now, can you remember what we've covered? Did anyone remember what we've covered? Luckily, we've got a prompt. We talked about the story. Your life is a story, beginning, middle, end. And you are the author of it. You have sole responsibility for how your story is going to develop, how you're going to respond to life's opportunities and life's challenges. And the opportunities will be full of challenges. There's no challenge-free lives. There are 4 roles we all play in our stories, and they were the hero, the villain, the guide, and the victim. We want to be more mindful about which one we're playing and move into the hero or the guide role more often. Heroes have ambitions, specific, daunting, maybe embarrassing ambitions, which are personally important. They turn towards their challenges. They're willing to make sacrifices. They have a bigger mission that they are moving towards, and they make things happen by taking action. Small actions, not big dramatic actions, but taking small movements, often, frequently, every day. People, can I just say thank you all very much for showing up. I very much appreciate you taking the time out of the day. It's lovely seeing your names there in the chat box. And can I wish you all a especially heroic afternoon, making meaning happen through your own actions. Bye bye for now.